Well, Merry Christmas, Signal Mountain Bible Church. I want to talk about Christmas a little bit, about some elements of it that I think we evangelicals sometimes miss out on a little bit. Christmas is one of my favorite times of the year, and I just wanted to share a message with you about how we can get the most meaning and the most joy out of it, I believe. I loved it when Damon shared a couple of weeks ago about the fact that feasts and festivals were very much a part of the Jewish year as God ordained it in Leviticus 23. I think he talked about Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread and First Fruits and the Festival of Weeks and of Trumpets and the Day of Atonement and the Feast of Booths and the Holy Convocation and Purim. And it's very clear that God ordained traditional festivals that involved rest, community, eating together, even camping out and giving presents as part of the Jewish year. God clearly felt that traditional festivals were spiritually important for his people. I would say that Christmas is one of the most important of those festivals for the Christian church. And it should be a time of joyful observance of God's becoming a man to save us, the light of the world shining in the darkness. I think Jesus' birthday, in other words, should be a time of tremendous celebration. If Jesus' birthday isn't worth a party, nothing is. In our house, some of the ways we do that are we always have a live tree. We always cut a live tree ourselves and keep it watered so that it stays green through the season. There are enough lights on that tree for it to be visible from outer space. Every year we give all of our children one ornament that adds to a collection of ornaments that they accumulate year by year, usually an ornament that relates to something they love or are involved in, and we kind of hunt around for those. I think handmade ornaments are all similarly wonderful. That doesn't happen to be what we do, but and when our children get grown, they take a whole collection of ornaments with them, 22 ornaments or so, out to start their own Christmas tradition and their own decorations. And it and my sons and my newlywed son and daughter-in-law cut live trees and did so this year. I'm one of those odd guys who loves Christmas ties. I have a collection of at least 12 of them. We always have a live wreath made from cedar branches on our front door, and there are decorations that are put in the same place around the house every year, including bubble lights on the bedpost in our bedroom and a Christmas angel. Even in our bedroom there are decorations. Amy does a Jesse tree, a quilted tree on the wall on which we can hang 25 ornaments that tell the story of the prophecies and the forerunners of Christ and the story of his coming. And we would read every day of December the verses going along with each ornament, and the children would hang it on the tree when they were little, and we still observe that tradition even to this day. So there are a lot of ways that we as a family try to make Christmas a blessed tradition, beautiful and fun. The Bible is full of wonderful stories, and I wanted to just clarify for all of us, or have us remember, that some of the most vivid and amazing stories are surrounding Christ's birth. Matthew's and Luke's accounts of the coming of Christ read like fairy tales almost. The lowest of the low come to the manger. The shepherds, the lowest caste of their society, are gloriously informed by an angelic host of the coming of the Christ child. And they come. They are the first witnesses of the coming of the Savior. But also the wealthy and the educated are included. The highest of society, they are drawn by the portentous star to worship the Christ child. And they bring symbolic gifts. Gold suggests, as the carol says, that Jesus is a king, and frankincense that he's God, that he's worshipped with, that he's to be worshipped, and myrrh that he will one day die for us. myrrh used to anoint dead bodies. So they're beautiful symbols, and they come a perilous journey over a long way to bring these gifts. And then Simeon, an old man, and Anna, who seem to have spent their lives waiting, rejoice in recognizing that Jesus in the temple as a little boy is the Messiah. So the story of Jesus coming is beautiful. Like I said, it reads like a fairy tale or a lovely myth. And yet that beauty should be, it's a myth become fact, as I'll talk about later, but that beauty should be no surprise. The Bible associates God with pleasure and joy. Psalm 16:11 says, "You make known to me the path of life. In your presence is fullness of joy. At your right hand are pleasures forevermore." Psalm 36:7-9 says, "How precious is your steadfast love, O God. The children of mankind take refuge in the shadow of your wings. They feast on the abundance of your house, and you give them drink from the river of your delights. For with you is the fountain of life. In your light we see light." C.S. Lewis says that pleasure, while it can be distorted and become sinful, is one of God's most powerful messages to us of his reality and love. In the Screwtape Letters, in which Lewis imagines Screwtape, an archdemon in hell, writing letters to Wormwood, an apprentice tempter, one of the darkest moments for the demons is when the patient experiences real pleasures. Screwtape says at one point, on your own showing, you first of all allow the patient to read a book he really enjoyed because he enjoyed it and not in order to make clever remarks about it to his new friends. In the second place, you allowed him to walk down to the old mill and have tea there, a walk through country he really likes and taken alone. In other words, you allowed him two real positive pleasures. You were trying to damn your patient by the world, that is, by palming off vanity, bustle, irony, and expensive tedium as pleasures. How can you have failed to see that a real pleasure was the last thing you ought to have let him meet? And later in Screwtape, in the letter, Screwtape talks about God as a hedonist who is constantly using daily pleasures to remind people of his goodness and bring them to himself. And when Aslan appears in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, his appearance is heralded by the coming of Father Christmas, who brings out piping hot tea with rich cream to warm the children up and as they prepare for the coming of Aslan, along with presents. Some of the most important Old Testament prophecies of Jesus' coming emphasize the perfect world that one day he will bring about in his second coming. He's the wonderful counselor, the mighty God, the everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace, Isaiah 9 says, in verses that Gary shared in his Advent talk a week or so ago. Isaiah 11 says, "There shall come forth a shoot from the stump of Jesse, and a branch from his roots shall bear fruit, and the Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him." And ultimately, what will this beloved baby bring about? "The wolf shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the young goat, and the calf and the lion and the fattened calf together, and a little child shall lead them." In other words, we are encouraged by Scripture to see the first coming of Jesus is pointing to the perfect world that his second coming will bring about. It's right for our meditation then on the birth of Christ to picture a light illuminating the darkness, a baby coming to heal our sick world, to turn all ugliness into beauty and all sadness into joy. It's right to let the beauty of the light that comes from the manger point ahead to the paradise that little baby came to give us. It is therefore biblical, not naive or secular, to rejoice in the lights and the decorations and the hearth fires burning on cold nights and the lovely cards and gift-giving of Christmas time. Sure, if we let Christmas make us frantic or greedily materialistic, then of course its celebration can turn us away from its true meaning. But our traditional celebrations can and should point us toward the meaning of Christmas, not away from it, toward the wonder of God becoming a precious little baby to save us and ultimately bring us into a world of endless beauty and joy and pleasure where there's no sickness or death. The breathtaking wonder children often feel at the story of Santa Claus can be associated with the story of that precious baby in the manger, visited by shepherds and wise men. The glory of those angels filling the night sky and the lovely portent of that star should fire the imaginations of children and childlike adults alike. If you want your children to continue following Jesus after they leave home, then Jesus should be associated not just with God's high calling for their lives, but with his joyful blessings, with their sweetest, happiest, most exciting moments, the times they felt most alive. James 1:17 says, every good and perfect gift comes from the Father of lights, and that verse should be very real to them in their own experience. God made us with a longing for beauty, joy, and pleasure. And if these things are not associated with him in our lives, we will go looking for them somewhere else. Your children will go looking for them somewhere else. J.R.R. Tolkien is the one who said that the Christian story is like a myth or fairy tale, full of the same longings, fears, and magical fulfillments, but a myth that became fact. The story of Christmas can become like a beloved fairy tale in your home, one that is so much more wonderful because it is also true. It's also historically factual. So Christmas is no time for stoicism, not even in the year of COVID-19. It is your God-given duty, your calling, to make Christmas a time of sweet traditions, joys, and pleasures, a light that outshines every darkness for your children and yourself. It's the loveliness, relationship, and beautiful tradition, not the money spent, of course, that can make Christmas so special. Be creative in making it, even this Christmas, even amid COVID, a time of rest, peace, pleasure for yourself and your children. Let the beauty and wonder of that precious little baby, God's gift of himself for us, that rose blooming miraculously in the middle of winter, in the middle of the night, as one carol puts it, fire your imagination and stir your heart. That is God's calling for all believers and certainly for those of the Signal Mountain Bible Church. Thanks.